You're going to tell us about uh, an experience you just can't shake off. Tell us a little bit about your job, and then we'll talk about what happened a year ago.
I work at Dana Corporation. I'm a CNC machinist. I've been there, be 4 years in July. Um, work first shift now. I used to be on third shift. Enjoy my job very much. Work a lot of overtime. Take pride in my job. And things just changed 357 days ago. And
So tell us a little bit about the date and then what happened that night, I guess you'd want to say.
that's correct. Going into what would be our April the 13th, which was a Saturday, a little before 1 o'clock a.m., 2 shots were fired by a supervisor at one of my coworkers. And everything kind of stopped.
Well, tell us a little bit more about that. Where were you when the shots were fired?
I was less than 20 feet away from where the shots were being fired. I was right on the other side of the machine in which the shots were being fired at.
And when you heard them, what did you do? What did you think?
I immediately stopped in my tracks and I turned around and looked up, and I seen the 2 clouds of smoke, which obviously came from the 2 bullets that were fired. And I didn't know what to do, but I knew not to proceed the way in which the shots were fired, if you will. So I went slowly around to the other side, and I ran into a coworker who had approached me and said, "Donna, those were shots fired." At that point, he and I both called for help. He was on the phone with 911, and I went to the nearest phone to call security to ask for help.
But from what I understand from your union, he was the president at the time, I believe, George Hoover, you were, by going around your place where you were working, you were in the direct line of fire with that second shot. Is that true or not?
Absolutely. And had I returned the other way, I'm sure I certainly would have been right in the mix of it. And had the bullet came through the machine, I certainly probably would have been struck.
So those are 2 instances where you could have been killed.
Absolutely.
Do you believe that that's what has got you so shaken from all the life experiences that you've ever had?
I do. And the fact that there was so much animosity and so much tension in this department on this shift, and the company and the union was well aware, but did nothing. And even to this day, now 357 days later, they've done nothing. I literally cried out for help for over 7 months. And at the end of the day, HR told me I was the problem.
Okay, is there anybody, how many people were in the vicinity when those shots were fired at 1 a.m.?
There was 3 people on my line, including myself, and then the shooter, which was the supervisor, and the coworker. So a total of 5 of us, 1 being the shooter.
So were there loud voices before the shots fired? Was there any warning?
Nothing.
Okay. So after that, those shots were fired, then what happened?
After I got on the phone and called up front and asked for help, there were shots fired. We needed all available personnel immediately. And my coworker was on the phone with 911. I then text my girls to let them know I might not make it home. I don't know what's going to happen. And then I ran to get help. The first person I found was up on the corner in another department. And I told him what was going on. I needed help. He came immediately. And when he approached the situation, there was already 2 other individuals trying to break up the 2 individuals. They were trying to get the gun from the shooter.
How much time had elapsed before?
What seemed like forever was probably 3 minutes.
So
eventually they got them apart. They never got the gun from him, but they separated. I watched the coworker who was shot at drive away on one of the safety carts. I never seen the supervisor leave. So we didn't know if he was still in the facility or not.
So that was scary too.
Absolutely. And I didn't know where he went.
So, but you went to get help, which is kind of admirable when you think about it, because you could have run out of the building. I mean, how many feet would it have taken you to literally run out to your car and get safety out there?
Several hundred. I was all the way in the back of the building. But I could have at least found an emergency exit, if you will.
So you felt like, hey, we need to do something. We need to potentially save people's lives.
Absolutely, because I didn't know if it was a one-on-one type incident or if this was just an incident that was going to proceed and shots were going to remain to be fired.
So did your feelings of dread and shakiness and really psychological torment, if you will, did they set in almost immediately, or was it a delayed reaction?
The police arrived probably within 7 to 10 minutes. It took a long time for them to finally evacuate the building, and then we were outside for a good hour. After they reviewed the camera, I guess they came to the conclusion that the supervisor had already left the premises. I remained at the facility that night.
And you were still working?
Correct. I guess at that point, maybe I did feel safe there, as everyone else left. But the days following weren't the same.
What were they like?
I missed a lot of work. I missed more work in 6 months than I've missed in 30 years.
Okay, and what was the reason for missing the work?
I couldn't mentally go. There was nights my alarm would go off and I might scream and cry. I might get in my car. I might drive down the street and turn around and come back home. I've gotten to the parking lot and called in. I went to my doctor 3 days after the shooting because I knew I needed help. The company nor the union never reached out to me, even after missing numerous days of work.
Now, did the union realize that you were suffering like this?
I don't know.
But they would have noticed that your attendance was off.
Absolutely. At least I would hope so, and production was down. But I knew I needed to help myself. So I went to my family doctor and I began treatment. And they got me on an antidepressant. And I still suffered. I knew my job was probably in jeopardy as I was missing so much work. So I filed for FMLA to secure my job. But then my doctor told me there was nothing more they could do for me until I seen a psychiatrist. So I knew then I had to do something because I can't afford to go see a psychiatrist on my own. So after I talked to an attorney, he told me I needed to at least file a workman's comp claim. And in doing so, I needed to file an incident report.
Was it difficult to find an attorney?
Not at all. Not at all.
But you did that on your own?
I did. As I knew I couldn't afford to move forward with the bills I was already accumulating. So I filed my own incident reports and took them to the safety committee, and the coordinator filed them to open the workman's comp claim. I was going on probably 14 weeks unmedicated, totally unhinged.
And when you say totally unhinged, what does that look like?
I don't know. Every day, I don't know what to expect. I have a lot of flashbacks.
What's the worst flashback? Like just feeling like you were in total danger, like almost like in a war zone?
Yes, and just not knowing, is someone going to do it again? As there's been no shooting protocol since. And I honestly feel like if it would have been different, if it would have been an employee, even if it was an employee, but I know if it would have been an employee that came at a supervisor with a gun, they would have been charged, they'd been fired.
What do you mean an employee, though? I thought he was an employee.
But he was a supervisor. So he's a company employee. He's not a union employee. He's not one of us, if you will. So I honestly feel like it's a big cover-up. Why were no charges filed? We can't even have a gun on the premises.
And I do want to say at this point that, yes, I have contacted Dana And I have also sent a FOIA to get the police report and told that it was still under investigation. So I have not gotten the information that we would like to get.
We were denied the police report. And the detective told me personally that no charges will be filed. Again, I don't understand why.
Oh, that is strange because we just had the Kroger shooter at the Georgetown Kroger, and he took a plea bargain and he shot in the store and did not kill anybody either, but was charged. But in this case, why are there no charges? This is still something we're seeking to learn.
Absolutely.
So
You jeopardized people's lives. And you changed people's lives.
So what about the other people that you've worked with? You said you've been on third shift, which is, I guess, what you were working that night. And then now you're on first shift. Do other employees talk about this incident? Are they still scared too? I mean, or do they have frustrations that there's no active shooter drill available?
Initially, many people reached out to me. Many people I didn't even know. And still, occasionally, many people will encounter, hey, how you doing? Any update? But I know people were affected.
What about the fellow who ran to tell you that to get out because you were in the line of fire?
He left the department as well. And I think he was somewhat affected. I know he and I spoke briefly from time to time. And I think it possibly affected him too.
Just tell us a little bit about how you've continued treatment, what you would like the company to do, and then I want to talk to you about your own life experiences because I know you've had kind of a tough life. So go ahead.
I reached out trying to get some treatment for quite some time, which is obviously a process. It has to go through the adjuster with the workman's comp claim and so forth. But finally, on Christmas Eve, if you will, I went to see the psychiatrist. No.
So this was months afterwards.
Oh, yes. 8 months. The psychologist. And he spoke with me briefly, and then we set up some testing, which I went in, I believe in January, and did some 3 hours worth of psychological testing, which they came to the conclusion that I had some severe PTSD and anxiety, and I was going to require some trauma therapy. And the psychologist I seen in January, the Bowen Center, and they did some testing as well and pretty much determined the same thing, that I had some severe PTSD. So I've been encountering the psychiatrist once a week for trauma therapy. No, the psychologist once a week, for trauma therapy, and the psychiatrist once a month for therapy.
And how's that been going?
I still don't sleep. Even maxed out medicated, I don't sleep more than 3 hours at a time.
And when you say maxed out medicated, can you say what the drugs are?
I'm taking 100 milligrams of tramadol, and then on top of the 100 milligrams of Prozac. And I'm waiting the prior authorization for a new medication, and I don't recall what it is, to also help with sleeping and focusing. But 3 hours is max. I'll sleep, and I'm up, and I'm wide awake. I might get up, start a little laundry, check some emails, but I'm usually wide awake. I might stay up for an hour or so, and I'll try to lay back down. So working 12 or 14 or 16 hours is not a big deal to me, because I try to wear myself down to where I will sleep.
What was your life like before this? Were you able to sleep the entire night?
I would sleep a good 6 hours straight, and that was all I really needed, and I was good. And again, I would work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day if available. I had no problem working and sleeping and eating. Now I might go days without eating. I'm like, oh, I haven't ate. I just totally off. It's hard to focus at times.
What would you like to see the company do?
I would like them first and foremost take a little responsibility and accountability. You know, they claim safety first. I don't see it. I want to know that they're going to make sure I'm okay. You know, I went to Dana almost 4 years ago with the plan to retire from Dana and make a damn good living. I always dreamed of working at Dana as a kid. My best friend's father worked at Dana. I knew it was a good job. I knew it was going to be there. I knew long term, they have a pension. I put in my time and my hours, and I'm going to be okay the rest of my life. Now I don't know if I'm going to be all right tomorrow. You know, I had to fight like hell to get here. I almost lost my job. I almost lost my house. I've never been behind on my bills. I didn't work a full 40-hour week for 4 months. Before that, I've got my attendance history. I didn't miss 4 days in 4 years.
Let's talk about your life a little too. Were you born and raised here in Fort Wayne?
In Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Okay. And you went to Lindley Elementary, you told me.
I did.
What high school did you go to?
I went to R. Nelson Snyder High School and then Elmhurst High School.
Mm-hmm. And after that, what kind of jobs did you get? I mean, did you...
I did some small factory jobs. I did some nursing through Ivy Tech. I worked at the nursing home for a while. Got my niche in nursing, did some private nursing. Because that worked out part-time, so I could raise my kids and be there. The flexibility was well and the pay was well. And then I worked at Nishikawa Cooper. So always kind of factory jobs.
And you became a CNC machinist.
I did.
Or did you go to Ivy Tech for that training? Or?
No, right at Dana.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Right. That's cool. So, but let's talk about your childhood. I don't think it was easy.
Not at all.
Tell us what happened as much as you can.
And I was a good kid. I had good grades. I was the youngest of 3. And my oldest brother was more of a manipulating scam artist, if you will. And I think he destroyed our family. I can remember one year he had my other brother out stealing right before Christmas. And my brother got in trouble and he went to juvenile. So my oldest brother had to come home and tell my parents that he did it and that he got my brother in trouble. He had him out stealing. Christmas was never the same, and life was pretty much never the same.
Were you removed from the home?
Eventually. He was removed at that point. He was at juvenile. My oldest brother ended up going to jail on some other theft charges. My parents ended up drinking a lot, went to the bar. I ran away.
How old were you then?
12 years old.
You ran away. Did you just run out on the streets? Did you go to grandma's house?
I just went with friends, so someone was going to feed me.
It was that bad, huh?
And not that my parents were bad parents. Don't get me wrong. But I didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my mother telling me she never wanted me. She wanted her boys. My father wanted me. father wanted a girl.
Where are they now?
My father's in heaven. And my mother's still at the place she raised me.
Do you have any contact?
I do. I've reconciled.
Mm.
I forgive, but I don't forget. There was one perfect one, and they crucified him. But I knew I was going to be a better parent, and I was going to provide better for my children.
Well, let's talk about your two girls. I know you're really, really proud of them.
It's my biggest accomplishment in life, Jamie. It'll never matter what job title I hold, how much money's in my bank account, how big my house is, or what kind of car I ever drive. But I've raised two successful young ladies.
And they're both adults now.
They
I
are.
think.
My oldest daughter just got married in October. Her husband graduated the Fire Department Academy in December. I'm patiently awaiting grandchildren. And my youngest daughter is a junior in Indianapolis. She's a criminal justice major.
Mm.
Life is good.
Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you.
With everything you've been through.
There is a silver lining.
I don't think we could end this interview without going over what you witnessed, though. I mean, because that was probably very traumatic for you, and yet, you know, the incident of Dana has affected you more greatly than that. So let's talk about when that happened. I think it was 2017. Am I right? Next door?
Yes.
November maybe?
The 7th.
Which was it?
November the 7th.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably a little after 3 a.m. I was laying right here on the couch, matter of fact. I think I'd worked 12 hours that day. Woke up to many gunshots. I didn't look out the window right away. I went upstairs and went to the bathroom. And when I did, my daughter was coming out. And she said, "Mom, did you hear those gunshots?"
Mm.
I said, "That's what it was." So I looked out the window. And all you could see was a guy running. Gray hood, nothing more. There's an alarm going off, a car alarm. I finally come downstairs and try to get myself together. By this time, my neighbors are outside as well, so I go out, and the police are pulling up. Someone had sat behind the house next door and waited for the arrival of the homeowner to come home.
This house over here?
Correct, right behind me.
Okay.
202 Sherwood.
Yeah.
And gunned down 3 ladies. 2 fatal. 1 survived after being shot 10 times. No one's still been charged with that murder, are there? And I'm sure they're very well who did it. In fact, from what I've read, I believe they may have encountered individuals right after the incident, but still no charges were ever filed.
And when you went out there, I think you were the first one on the scene.
That's correct.
Okay. And so you witnessed 2 women who were on the ground. Oh, no.
They had already taken the 2. They had them in an ambulance and they were pulling off.
Okay.
But when I walked out, 1 was still deceased and laying on the pavement.
In the driveway,
Correct.
as I recall, yeah. So after that, what went through you with that? That must have been scary that it happened literally next door. You were the first one on the scene.
Right next door. And many people, the block became very busy, if you will. But the first thing I did was turn the hose on after they removed Nicole Saylor.
Right.
I turned the hose on and I hosed down all of her blood because no one needed to see that. I stayed out most of the morning, but before that I had to walk my daughter to the bus stop through the crime scene. And you know, Jamie, that didn't affect me the way this affects me. Hosing down the blood of the deceased that was literally gunned down intentionally doesn't affect me. I still slept. I still stayed right next door. I had no intentions on moving. In fact, I hold a candlelight vigil every November for those ladies. I guess I feel safe for sure. And I would like to feel safe at work, especially a workplace that, again, puts safety first. But I don't feel safe walking into work. There's nights I might sleep with my door unlocked. I feel safe at my house, right next door to where 3 ladies was gunned down.
So let's just talk a little bit about your future.
I'd like to secure my 5 years in it, Dana, at least, to secure my pension, to know that I'm fully vested. After that, I really don't know, because every day is hard, every day is hell. I never thought that I'd be going through this.
No, and as tough as you are.
Very, I consider myself a very strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
But when the company doesn't have my back, it's kind of hard to make a move. I've reached out to the plant manager, and even he won't respond. I can show you emails. The head of HR won't allow me access to my personal file so that I can verify dates, because I know there should be so much documentation in there for everything that led up to this. But again, is it in there?
And meanwhile, have you encountered the man who was the supervisor?
I have not. But I still work with the coworker that he shot at.
And your relationship is good with him.
And I can't imagine what he goes through.
Anything you want to say at the end here?
I don't believe so. Do the right thing.
Well, God bless you, Donna. And thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, Jamie.
Probable Cause. Thanks you.